and mine are no exception. I regret my comments, as I said, and I stand corrected.
They liken.
Words carry weight, and Whoopi Goldberg's were no exception. She stood corrected, her regret palpable as she acknowledged the fallout from her comments on The View. The show had consistently mocked, shamed, and, in her own admission, lied about President Trump. But this time, the consequences weren't confined to heated debates or social media storms. The studio lights dimmed, the audience's applause faded, and the atmosphere shifted from daytime television to something far colder. A courtroom. It began like any other episode of The View. Fiery, confident hosts, a controversial guest, and enough tension to keep viewers glued to their screens. Karoline Leavitt, a rising conservative figure, walked onto the set, not as a guest to be coddled, but as a target. The hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin, came prepared, their jabs sharp and rehearsed. Behar led with sarcasm, mocking Leavitt's rapid political ascent as if it were a fluke, her tone daring a response. Goldberg followed, her disdain unmistakable, dismissing Leavitt's career as a product of social media hype rather than substance. Hostin, with a smile that never reached her eyes, reduced Leavitt's journey to a privileged stunt, a white girl playing dress-up in democracy's house. The audience roared, lapping up the spectacle like it was primetime comedy. Telekine's hosts leaned into the moment, their unity palpable, their mockery cloaked as banter. It was a classic setup, the pack mentality of a talk show, where sharp words and smug laughter ruled. But Leavitt didn't flinch. She didn't storm off or dissolve into tears. Instead, she sat calmly, her eyes steady, cataloging every insult. Not out of anger, but with the precision of someone building a case. The host mistook her restraint for weakness, unaware that she wasn't there to play their game. She was there to change it. The retaliation didn't come on social media, where vague posts or cryptic hashtags might have fizzled out. It didn't come in a press conference or a tell-all interview. It came with the cold, unyielding force of legal documents served directly to ABC. Leavitt had filed a defamation lawsuit alleging career sabotage and malicious intent. What the hosts thought was a routine roast had spiraled into a legal war, one that threatened not just their reputations, but the entire machinery of The View. The accusations were seismic, a coordinated effort to humiliate Leavitt on live television, not for discourse, but to send a message to conservative voices. You're not welcome here. The lawsuit claimed damages of $800 million, a figure that sent shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't a publicity stunt or a petty grievance. It was a calculated strike aimed at the heart of mainstream media. Leavitt named not just Goldberg, but Behar, Hostin, and ABC itself, pulling no punches. The allegations went beyond harsh. Words accusing the network of orchestrating a deliberate character assassination. Every joke, every eye roll, every dismissive comment had been cataloged, not for clout, but for court. Leavitt's legal team framed it as more than a personal attack. It was a systemic effort to silence dissenting voices, a warning shot to anyone who dared challenge the media's narrative. The courtroom became the new stage, and the contrast was stark. Gone were the studio lights, the cheering audience, and the safety net of commercial breaks. In their place was a cold, unforgiving arena where words carried consequences, not applause. Goldberg, once the queen of the clapback, now sat under scrutiny, her usual confidence replaced by a visible strain. Eyewitnesses described her clenched hands, her twitching lips, her eyes flickering with something close to panic. This wasn't a performance. It was survival. Across from her sat Leavitt, composed and unshaken, her presence a silent rebuke to the chaos she'd ignited. She didn't gloat or grandstand. She didn't need to. Her lawsuit spoke louder than any soundbite. The trial unfolded like a slow-motion implosion. Leavitt's legal team came armed with evidence so meticulous it felt like a data breach. Raw. Footage, full transcripts, production notes, internal emails, and metadata painted a damning picture. What had seemed like spontaneous jabs were revealed to be part of a scripted strategy. A leaked internal memo became the case's bombshell, allegedly instructing producers to exploit Leavitt's youth, throw her off balance, and let her spiral for the sake of viral content. The document didn't just shock, it reframed the entire segment as a calculated takedown, not a debate. The courtroom's reaction was visceral. Legal analysts recoiled, one muttering under their breath, "This isn't commentary, this is coordination." The case was no longer about a single episode. It was about intent, about a media machine that traded dignity for ratings. Goldberg's defense was shaky. She claimed ignorance of the production decisions, insisting she was merely the talent, not the architect of the segment's tone. But the words rang hollow, especially as clips played in court. Goldberg ridiculing Leavitt's intellect, mocking her voice, even tossing in low blows about her appearance. What once passed for snappy television now landed as cruel and tone-deaf. The emails didn't help. Internal communications revealed producers joking about goading Leavitt to the edge, about making her squirm for the cameras. One message, allegedly read, "We need the spike," a chilling nod to the segment's goal. Humiliation, not discourse. With every document read aloud, the courtroom's air grew thinner, the weight of accountability pressing down. Then came the moment that shifted the trial's tone. As the prosecution circled back to the memo, Goldberg leaned toward her attorney, whispered something inaudible, and slowly dropped her face into her hands. The gesture wasn't dramatic. It was involuntary, a fleeting crack in her armor. The courtroom fell silent, the kind of silence that lingers like smoke. When proceedings resumed, Goldberg returned with her composure intact, but the damage was done. Her eyes were glassy, her fingers trembled faintly, and her usual commanding presence seemed to falter. This wasn't the Goldberg who dominated daytime television. This was someone staring down the unfiltered consequences of her words. Back at ABC, chaos reigned. Executives scrambled in emergency meetings, legal teams flooded in, and PR departments spun in circles. The network's polished image cracked overnight as advertisers began pulling out, wary of the growing scandal. Ratings plummeted, loyal viewers felt betrayed, and new ones tuned in not for entertainment, but to witness a fall from grace. Internal leaks revealed a network in disarray. Marketing teams searched for exit strategies, while whispers of pulling The View off the air gained traction. The show, once a daytime staple, now faced structural damage, its future uncertain. Goldberg's contract was dissected, her legacy teetering. The woman who had weathered countless controversies was no longer untouchable. The trial's ripple effects extended beyond ABC. Legal experts called it a landmark case, one that could redefine the boundaries of commentary, political discourse, and guest treatment in media. If Leavitt won, the precedent would send shockwaves through the industry, forcing networks to rethink the power they wield and the accountability they owe. The courtroom became a microcosm of a larger cultural shift, where the line between banter and bullying was being redrawn. Leavitt's fight wasn't just personal, it resonated as a battle against a system that punished dissenting voices. Her poise, her evidence, her refusal to play the victim turned her into a symbol of resistance, not just for conservatives, but for anyone who'd been silenced by spectacle. Social media amplified the drama, with platforms that once ignored Leavitt, now flooded with her clips. Hashtags like "More Justice for Karoline" and "Media Accountability" trended, sparking a national conversation. Even her critics softened, not because they agreed with her politics, but because they recognized injustice. The setup, the ridicule, the weaponized airtime. It wasn't just a bad segment, it was a betrayal of fairness. Leavitt's strategy fueled the fire. No tearful interviews, no dramatic PR stunts, just cold, hard evidence laid out like a fortress. The raw footage, the transcripts, the emails, they weren't chaos, they were choreography, a deliberate plan to dismantle her on live television. The industry watched with bated breath. A Leavitt victory wouldn't just vindicate her, it would rewrite the rules. It would challenge the illusion that guests are protected, that the cruelty of commentary has no cost. It would signal to every voice silenced for ratings: you can fight back. For networks, the prospect was terrifying. The red light of the camera, once a symbol of power, now carried risk. The trial forced a reckoning with accountability, with what happens when the cameras stop rolling and the consequences begin. The courtroom, the contrast between the two women remained stark. Goldberg, once a titan of television, appeared eroded, her defiance undercut by moments of visible regret. Leavitt, meanwhile, was a force wrapped in calm, her focus unwavering. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence spoke volumes. This wasn't drama. It was justice, a boundary crossed and a line redrawn. The trial wasn't just about one episode or one lawsuit. It was about the future of media, about who controls the narrative and who pays the price when it goes too far.